Hey, what's up? Welcome into a little show called The Sweat. Don't get nervous. We won't actually make you perspire, I don't think, unless our dashing good looks here make you uncomfortable. You're only human.
I'm Reid Fowler. He's Adam Kaufman, and he's wearing his Canadian tuxedo.
I was told the denim on denim would be
okay, I got
look.
the New England tuxedo with the plaid, and usually this guy is in plaid, but it's 2018. Come on, Kaufman.
You know, do what you do, I guess. What better thing to do in 2018 any other year really works, I think. Any year, for that matter. It's Talk Football. We're joined by DK Live's Jeff Ulrich, Adam Mancuda, host of the All Out Blitz on Phantom Sports, and Ryan Stone Cold Collinsworth. Yeah, that's right. Look, I'm intimidated just looking at him. You can see him on the Action Network app. We enjoy having him here as well. Fellas, hello. Let's start with a little bit of over-unders, I think. Underachiever edition, though. That looks nice. The question, will these players who have so far failed to live up to expectations actually hit on these hefty fantasy totals this weekend?
Yeah, first one is Eli Manning, a guy who's been underperforming all year. Will the Giants QB reach 20 DK points in Carolina four games in? Hasn't gotten there, Jeff. So what do you think?
I'm gonna take a positive approach on this. It's probably gonna shock some people, but I actually think he might hit it this week. And Eli really hasn't played that bad. I mean, he is completing quite a few of his passes. He's the big upside hasn't been there yet. He hasn't thrown a touchdown to Odell Beckham. But if you look at the outside matchups here, I mean, James Bradbury versus Odell Beckham, this is a very burnable matchup for Odell. So it's not so much that I think Eli Manning has a ton of upside. It's that eventually he's going to connect with Odell Beckham, and Odell Beckham will bring up Eli Manning's fantasy total. I think that could happen this week. Eli Manning is not a player I would foresee having a ton of upside throughout the year, but in this spot, I think he might actually go over 20 fantasy points.
Adam, do you think, obviously without Evan Ingram in there with no foreseeable tight end until he comes back, do you think he gets to that point without or with OBJ?
No, I just don't. And, being here in New York, all the radio stations here are now saying that what was the point of drafting Barkley if you still didn't fix the offensive line, which is obviously the major concern here. And Eli is not a mobile quarterback, so he can't get out of the pocket. So for me, this is an absolute no way. And the reason I say that is the Giants haven't scored 30 points in the game since, I think, the Roosevelt administration. And to me, he hasn't thrown for 300 yards yet this season. And again, if you look at the matchup against Carolina, yes, they're depleted a little bit, but in his career against Carolina, he's only 4-3, only 13 touchdowns to 7 picks. I just don't see it. I think there's so many more other quarterbacks you could play this week. I'm worried about Eli a lot. I think last week was a huge step back against the terrible Saints defense. I don't think he's going to be able to turn around against the Panthers this week.
Ryan, you agree, disagree?
Yeah, this won't surprise you guys very much, but I'll take the under in this one. Eli Manning has only had 20 or more DraftKings points once in the last 16 games, dating back to last season. And then the Giants on the road, like over the last 3 years, have averaged 16.8 points per game. They're just not scoring in road contests, and they get the Panthers on a bye. Nothing about this, from the metrics perspective, screams a good game for Eli, so I'll fade it.
Say, one, I'm confused by the fact that Ryan's sitting there without those back-to-school stars, lightning bolts in the back. That would be a perfect back-to-school photo where he's sitting right now. Yeah. Meanwhile, Jeff has not crapped on my Canadian tuxedo, which makes me a little uncomfortable. And you got a Patriots-Colts game tonight, and Adam doesn't have his Patriots background.
Up is down, left is right.
Up and down.
The next segment, okay?
Up and down, these guys are confusing me.
Fake Canadian Adam Kaufman.
There we go. Now everything's back to normal.
Yeah, still a jerk, Jeff. Dolphins back Kenyon Drake. Over under 15 fantasy points in Cincy. That's the question here. Now, he has totaled 5. Just 5 fantasy points his last 2 games after 17 back in week 2. Yeah, not very good. No. Adam, what do you say?
I'd be under at like 10 or 8 or 7. I mean, this guy, think about it this way. The guy's had more carries in the last 2 weeks, 8, than yards, 6. No, thank you. I know that the Bengals aren't that good defensively, but they just aren't giving him the ball. And he is probably the most talented back they have, but because of game script and just Frank Gore being there and still, having a pulse, I guess they want to give him the ball. To me, Drake's someone, you just got to stay away from this guy. He's a complete underachiever so far. I think eventually he'll get some carries as the Dolphins learn that Frank Gore's done. But at this point, absolutely not. Stay away from Drake. Hate the Drake is an old Seinfeld reference for you.
Jeff, I know you love you some Drake music, pal, but you down on Kenyon?
Oh, boy. Starting from the bottom, now you're at Kenyon Drake, I guess.
There it is.
I like Kenyon Drake as a player, but I'm not high on the Miami Dolphins offense at all. They had 3 gift matchups to start the year, 3-0. You saw what happened last week against a real team. I think that's going to happen again. The Bengals get Vontaze Perfect back. Linebacker, that's only going to increase, their ability to stop the run. And like Adam said, they're just not really giving Drake the ball. They're giving Frank Gore just as many carries. So it's an easy under here. Hopefully Drake, gets a bigger percent of the carries as we head towards the end of the season. But no, under is easy call here.
What do you say, Ryan? No way?
Yeah, I'm just going to pile it on this one. Not only have we seen Drake's carries decline every single game this season, we've also seen his snaps decline every single game this season. And like the other guy said, I don't think that's due to his natural ability. I think there's a bigger problem here, and that's pace. Miami is 31st in the NFL, second to last in plays per game at 50. When you're only running 50 plays on offense, I don't care what the running back split is, none of them are going to be relevant. And they're only converting 31% of their third downs, which helps explain why their pace is so horrible.
Such a fraud 3-1 team.
Well, I mean, he was a league winner for most people.
They are. They're the biggest frauds in the NFL right now.
Unreal. Wow. Okay.
Strong take out of Ulrich.
I know.
Came in hot.
I know. Another player on the road, Michael Crabtree, and the Ravens, along with his chain, are visiting the Browns. The number's 12, gentlemen, which he put up twice in 4 games, but both times at home in Baltimore. So, Adam, what do you think? Over under here.
Yeah, there it is.
I'm gonna go with I'll go with Crabtree going over here. I like that the fact that he's still seeing his targets, 28 in the last 3 games. We also saw what just happened to Oakland. Cleveland lit up Oakland, so why can't Baltimore? They have 3 good receivers now. What they actually did in upgrading Flacco's arsenal receivers is he's gonna give now Crabtree, John Brown, and Willie Snead opportunities to catch the ball, and he's gonna spread it out. But to me, Crabtree is still the best one of those 3. I think he's going to get those points this week. So 12 isn't too bad. I think he actually finds the end zone this week. And I think Flacco actually, so far this season has been one of the more improved guys because finally he has a good group of receivers around him. So give me the over on Crabtree this week.
Jeff, Hayden Hurst joins the carousel of tight ends there. What do you think? Over under 12?
Yeah. They draft a tight end every year in Baltimore in like the top 2 rounds. It's ridiculous. I'm kind of bullish on Crabtree this week. Cleveland's got an emerging secondary, but they've still been pretty giving to the wide receiver position. It looks like Denzel Ward might match up against John Brown, which would be a really good thing for Michael Crabtree. And then you add in the fact that, Alex Collins might be beat up too. It just might add to a few more passes. I think this is a good spot for Michael Crabtree. I don't hate his DraftKings salary. He's not a guy I roster a ton, but this is a spot I'll take a look at him. And I would go over 12 fantasy points here.
Ryan, you agree? John Brown's been a guy that's, a lot of people were on preseason, but Crabtree is the case of the dropsies. What do you think?
Yeah, I still, like Jeff, I prefer Brown over Crabtree, but I still like Crabtree in the over on this take as well. I don't want to just pair it with everybody else has already said, but the volume is there. He still has the most snaps of all the skill position players in Baltimore. And then the Browns defense is giving up 296 passing yards a game so far this season. So it's an overall good spot for him.
All right, other side of that game, you got David Njoku. He was a candidate for a breakout season, but so far, tight end has not quite delivered. However, he is coming off 10 DK points in Oakland. So, Adam, without your JE11 hat, tell me, can he do it?
Yeah, I got to go get that. We have a few hours till kickoff here. Getting pumped up to see my boy Jules back on the field, but no, I'm out on Njoku. The guy's got a ton of upside. I think he has a ton of potential, but he's just too risky week to week. I mean, 14 catches in 4 games. That doesn't do anything for me. 121 total yards. Again, this guy, when you're looking for a guy to plug and play at tight end, you want to see that upside in terms of touchdowns. The guy hasn't scored yet. He scored in the preseason, hasn't done so in the regular season. So for me, I'd rather go grab a guy like Vance McDonald, who you've seen Big Ben use a lot. Someone like that. Ricky Seals-Jones is a great matchup this week against the San Francisco defense that gets annihilated by tight ends. So I'd rather have one of those guys. So I'm down on Njoku, so I'll pass on this one as well.
Jeff, are you also a no on Njoku?
No, I'm a yes. I'm bullish on him going forward too. I mean, and again, yeah, he only caught 5 passes last week, but that was his season high, and it was with Baker Mayfield. It was his most efficient game of the year, his high yardage game of the year too. And I think you're going to see more of that going forward. He hasn't caught a touchdown yet, but again, he's had Tyrod Taylor, who's downgraded from Ty God to just regular Tyrod now because he's terrible. And I just feel like with Baker Mayfield in the starting position now, you're going to see more than Njoku. And yeah, he hasn't scored, but he's easily the Browns' best red zone target. They're not really that deep at wide receiver. I think he's going to get a little bit more consistent targeting going forward. Definitely like the quarterback change. So I like the price on him this week. I like him going forward for the rest of the year too.
Fun fact, Jeff says bullish more than anyone other than Pete Jennings on the DFS Edge. He takes the cake on bullish. What do you got, Big Country?
Big Country, okay.
That's a great name. I love it.
Yeah, okay.
To throw it right back at him.
I'm with Jeff that I am bullish on Njoku this week in particular, but I'm concerned about him for the rest of the season. He's tied for 17th in the NFL in receptions, even though that's only at 14 among tight ends. But he's 19th in receiving yards, 24th in receiving yards per game, and 66th in yards per catch. And all of that, metrics, whatever. The big thing for me is that the hype on him going into the season was based on his athleticism, his ability to potentially stretch the field, running down the seam, which implies a depth of target that he's not receiving. So if he's just getting short chunk plays, that's not the Njoku that we were all hoping for this season. That could be a Todd Haley problem. Not sure. Maybe Baker fixes it, but long term, I'm concerned about this.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to say Kaufman wrote this entire script, so any personal vendettas you have, it's on him. Hang with us.
It's all in good fun.
I know. We'll chat with you guys again a little bit later in the show. For now, though, we've got hockey on the way after we get Pat Mayo's Thursday night picks for the Patriots-Colt game.
Pat Mayo here with your Thursday night hot picks for Week 5's opener, Colts-Patriots, presented by Buffalo Wild Wings. Last week, no matter who you picked Thursday night, they all scored fantasy points. This week, much more difficult. We've got two offenses that love spreading the wealth around on offense, combined with a rash of injuries to important cogs, making this far trickier. However, it will unleash significant value for some of your cheaper players if you want to pay up for the studs. Since T.Y. Hilton's likely out with a hamstring issue, catches are up for grabs for the Colts. Many will point to Ryan Grant since he's been working as the wide receiver 2 all season. But after Hilton left against the Texans, we saw the unknown duo of Chester Rogers and Zach Pascal assume duties in the receiving game. Pascal caught an early score, but I'll turn to Rogers, who was leaned on late in the fourth quarter and overtime as my cheap Indy option. Now, on the Patriots side, just go Tom Brady in the captain spot, so you don't have to figure out who in the hell he's throwing to. Gronk's banged up, Gordon's on the snap count, Edelman's returning from suspension, Hogan plays the most snaps but doesn't get any targets, Philip Dorsett and Cordero Patterson are live options as field touchdowns. None of that's good. So just play the guy tossing the ball to them and you can't lose. Captain Brady and roll out James White with him and you're off to a good start. Those are my Thursday night hot picks for Colts Patriots. I'm Pat Mayo.
All right, thank you, Mayo. Welcome back. Let's talk pucks now that the NHL season is finally underway. Oh, it was a long wait, but we are here. Joe Holka and the Action Network's Sean Newsham here as well. Guys, we're going to dive into a little price check action, see who's set to deliver value based on his salary. First up, Sidney Crosby. Sid the Kid has got the Capitals. He is $7,600. Is that reasonable? What do you say, Joe?
Yeah, so we have a metric at Fantasy Labs called shot.
Joe,
All right, I think we lost you, Joe. Yeah, we'll get you back. Sean, why don't you take over for a second?
Yeah, so I think Sidney Crosby's in a solid position tonight. He is playing against Washington, who is playing on a back-to-back. Generally, as the season gets longer, the back-to-backs become less and less of an issue. However, when you're at the beginning of the season, the legs generally aren't underneath you. And Washington ended up raising their Stanley Cup banners last night and coming out with a 7-0 victory against Boston at home. So they had to go travel to Pittsburgh in a situation where they ended the Pittsburgh season last year. I expect a really solid night from Pittsburgh, and especially Sidney Crosby against Washington tonight.
Joe, why don't we try again, see if we got you back?
Yeah, can you guys hear me
There
now?
we go, yeah. We don't want to miss that hot take.
Yeah, no worries. No, I like Crosby quite a bit for a lot of the same reasons that Sean stated, especially Washington traveling last night. But I just think there's guys in his similar price range that have a higher floor for sure, at least from a shot perspective. He's the second highest priced option, but I still think guys like Sagan, Bergeron, even like Jack Eichel have a better shot floor tonight. I think Sid's almost always in play, but I think I prefer to go a different direction tonight if he's going to be super popular in tournament.
All right, Kaufman was not in a good headspace last night as the Bruins were embarrassed in D.C.
Didn't even show up.
So they'll try to right the ship in Buffalo. Brad Marchand dropped the gloves last night, but only took one shot, not exactly his game. How's 6,900 sound, Joe?
Yeah, I think he's fine. Marchand's never a great floor option, in my opinion. Only 83rd percentile in shot attempts. Same range. You have Tarasenko in the 98th percentile, Marchessault in the 96th percentile. Like, especially if you're just going to pair him in your stacks with Bergeron, I think he makes some sense in tournaments, but he's not a guy that I'm throwing in like one-off teams in cash.
Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that Marchand's in a solid spot tonight. He went out there and last night after Lars Eller scored the last goal was able to fight him because he was not thrilled. So if there's one thing you can say about Marchand, he's a prideful guy. They get Buffalo tonight, and you have a situation where I expect them to really produce. But like Joe said, you have a guy like Jonathan Marchessault at the same price point in Vegas in a very favorable matchup when Marchessault is a guy that was top 20 in the league last year in shots on goal. When you have a guy with that type of shot volume going forward in a very favorable matchup, I think I would lean towards him at home in that spot.
I mean, don't go out and obnoxiously celebrate a goal that puts you up 7-0. You're going to get thrown to the ice. I think that was the point out of old Brad Marchand there. All right, on the blue line, guys, PK Subban, 5,900. He's visiting the Rangers for his season debut. The Preds defenseman, a stud again last year, but how's his price point start for this year? How does it feel to you? What do you say, Sean?
I think good old Pernell Carl's a little bit too high at this point in the season. I like him always. He's one of my favorite defensemen in the league. I like the swag that he brings to the game and the flair, but I think you have a few options a little bit cheaper than him. Chris Letang should get all of the top power play minutes this season for Pittsburgh, at least at this point. And I just think that Letang brings a little bit more favorable shot volume and block shot volume than what you're going to get out of PK Subban. But I still like PK Subban because he's one of those guys that goes out there and puts up decent shots. But the minutes are more spread out in Nashville as well.
Sean? Or Joe, rather, sorry.
Yeah, it's a tough price point for PK 5,900, in my opinion. It's a really solid matchup against the Rangers. They gave up the second most shots per game in the league last year. But Subban's not like an elite kind of peripheral guy. He does have some shot upside, but game to game, it's really hard to choose which games he's really going to have those 5 and 6 shot games. So I think he's fine in tournaments, but at that price point, I don't think you can go anywhere near him in cash games.
Joe, we'll stay with you. Marc-Andre Fleury's 8,200 with defending Western champion Golden Knights opening at home against the Flyers. Will he return value?
8,200, who it seemed pretty expensive for the guy that's only the 5th largest favorite on the slate. We know how key wins are at goaltender, so I'm leaning pretty heavily on Vegas lines at goalie typically, but Vegas is a little bit of a different animal. Obviously, we know how good they are at home. 8th fewest goals against at home, but they were actually middle of the pack as far as shots against. So he might have a decent shot floor at 8,200. I think he's someone you have to consider.
Sean, what do you think? You agree?
Yeah, I think with that type of price point, I'd rather be looking at Ben Bishop for Dallas as the biggest favorite on the slate. However, the Vegas lines aren't exactly 100% accurate at the beginning of the season due to teams being a little bit more unknown. I think I'd prefer to save a little bit of salary and maybe go down towards Boston with Yaroslav Halak. I think they really rebound tonight, and I think they give Buffalo fits. So I think I would go a little bit on the salary saving side and spend down a little bit.
Don't rule out Fleury being motivated by that pregame cabaret show on the ice, though. They do it in Vegas.
I love it.
Yeah,
it's a great show.
They get you set up. All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Sean. We'll talk again later. More football on the way, though, after a little bit of baseball in our latest Fantasy Flash.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. Game 1 of the NLDS series between the Dodgers and Braves kicks off tonight in Los Angeles, and one team has already thrown a curveball. Instead of trotting out Clayton Kershaw for Game 1, Dodgers are putting out Hyunjin Ryu on the bump for the series opener. The lefty is worth $14,000 for the Showdown slate and has been pretty hot since coming off the DL in mid-August, posting a 1.88 ERA. And on the other side, Mike Foltynewicz will get the start for Atlanta at $13,900. And the righty did have a breakout in 2018, posting a 2.85 ERA, but does face a tough challenge in the Dodgers offense, who led the NL in home runs this season. As some bats, take a look at Ronald Acuna. Looks to be a strong play for Atlanta at $9,800 as he turned in a strong rookie season. Against lefties this year, Acuna had a .302 average to go along with a .595 slugging percentage. And for LA, Justin Turner at 8K does have some decent value, especially when you look at his postseason resume. For his career, the outfielder is hitting .321 when stepping into October and has a .571 slugging percentage.
All right, welcome back to our football fanatics. Adam Mancuda, host of the All Out Blitz, which can be found on Phantom Sports on NFL Sundays. DK Live's very own Jeff Ulrich. The Action Network's Ryan Collinsworth, Stone Cold himself, from, of course, that app. You should check it out. You know where to find it by now. Plus the model man, Dr. Selene Parekh of the Fantasy Doctors. Boy, a quad box right off the hop. I love it.
Guys, this is one of my favorite segments, well, because we're using models, and I'm a visual learner.
None of them are models.
No, none of them are models, but you know what I'm talking about. But it looks like Dr. P is coming to us remote. But the first guy that we're going to talk about is Green Bay wideout Geronimo Allison, who remains in concussion protocol, part of a depleted Green Bay receiving corps. So, Dr. P, what are you looking for, or what are doctors looking for to get them cleared before they can come back to play?
Yeah, so the challenge with concussion is that we just don't understand how bad they really are. And you can just look at a video and think that there's a really horrible concussion, and it's not. And then you can look at another video and say, hey, that was a mean hit, but it wasn't as bad as you thought. So the bottom line is a concussion protocol has been developed to try to get these guys cleared. It's a 5-step process. Step 1 is to get them off of all their devices, relax the brain, and there's no mental activity. You do some light activities only. Step 2, you get these guys doing light aerobic activities. Step 3, you get them doing some more intense activities. Step 4, they're non-contact football activities. And Step 5, you have them doing full contact activities. Now, they cannot keep progressing unless their neurologic testing has returned back to the baseline. And the baseline was obtained before the season started. So they have to be able to show that their neurological screening is back to baseline. And most of these guys will miss at least 1 week of the game.
All right, so Jeff, if Allison is out and Randall Cobb iffy for Sunday, he may not go. Where's the value in Green Bay?
You know, I think most people are going to be targeting Aaron Jones as part of the Green Bay offense. I'm interested in Ty Montgomery, too. I think both running backs are a little bit interesting. Montgomery's definitely going to get a little bit more play if Cobb and Allison sit. I mean, they used him in the pass game effectively last week, but then they didn't have to go to him heavy because it was Buffalo and they were ahead 20-0 right off the bat. So I think there's a little bit of interest from my perspective from Montgomery. I could see him outscoring Aaron Jones, and he'll be a lot lesser owned in GPPs.
Ryan, you high on Montgomery as well?
Yeah, Jeff is spot on with that one.
Oh, don't it's going to go right to his head.
Thank you, Ryan.
Yeah, Jeff nailed that one. He Montgomery's only at 3,800. He started his career for the Packers as a receiver, and then in the past, when they've been thin, they have flexed him out to the slot, and they've used him that way already in the preseason, and then 2 weeks ago, I think. So I think Montgomery is definitely on my radar. Jeff nailed that one. And then I'm also monitoring Devontae Adams. I know he has a calf injury, but if he's good to go, then I'm definitely going to be all over that one. Adams has never been a huge volume guy. It's just straight up scoring. And with those other guys potentially out, Adams is a good look too.
Adam, do you also think Jeff is really smart?
Sometimes. First of all, we got to represent.
Nice, yeah, it's a little bit of an upgrade each segment.
We're upgrading. We're going to keep doing some wardrobe changes throughout the show.
I appreciate that.
I actually, I love Jones here. I think he's going to have a big week. The other guy that I'm really high on this week, and I want to very interested to see how he's going to perform, is Valdez Scantling, the rookie from South Florida. $3,300. He's very low. He's worth a risk, I think, in your flex spot. Save and go somewhere else, because last week he get 1 catch, 38 yards. If you're going to tell me that Allison and Cobb are out, that Adams is not 100%, we know Jimmy Graham is not playing very well, and they've talked this guy up, and he's been elevated as like the top rookie receiver that they drafted. I think they drafted 3 or 4 guys. I would take a risk with this guy this week, see how it goes. Again, he gets 2-3 catches for 60 yards. You're in the money there. So for me, it's worth a risk.
All right, moving on to Leonard Fournette, who is out again after re-aggravating a hamstring injury. Dr. P, he came back for 1 game and now is out again with this re-aggravation. So why can this be such a troubling injury for running backs?
Well, your hamstring is a huge set of 4 muscles that sit in the back of your thigh, and they are once you injure them, it is very hard to bounce back very quickly from this, and you have a high chance of a re-aggravation. And we see this with him. Now, Fournette has shown us last season that he's a guy that continues to re-aggravate injuries. And so for a running back who has a record of continually re-aggravating injuries, I worry for him. So my timeline for him to return to play at this point is another 2 to 4 weeks.
Adam, is TJ Yeldon then in that case, who's probably the best dual threat? Oh, he's back with us.
Sorry.
Is TJ Yeldon a must-play against Kansas City's defense this week? TJ Yeldon.
Yeah, I do think he's a great play this week. You got to remember something, that this game, obviously won't be a shootout because I don't think the Jaguars will be able to keep up with the Chiefs. But if he's the only back that's really there, yes, Corey Grant's in the backfield, and he may take some receptions. But for me, Yeldon's a guy that's very versatile. You saw that last week, in their win over the Jets. He was able to catch balls out of the backfield, run for a bunch of yards. He's seen 22 targets already this season. So for me, he's going to be starting. He's in a dream matchup against a team that really doesn't play much defense. So again, any running back one that's going to get that volume, especially with no real backup behind him, I'm bullish on Yeldon this week.
You think Adam also went to go check on Jeff's dog?
I think so, but I think Jeff's dog is sitting now. Ryan, what do you think?
Yeah, I'll just elaborate on the previous point about the Chiefs sucking on defense, which is very, very true. They're dead last in the NFL in defensive DVOA, and then they're 30th against the run specifically. So this is an absolute smash spot for Yeldon, so I think he's a great play in cash. I would fade him, however, in GPP. You have redraft people and DFS people who are so annoyed with Leonard Fournette ownership already that they're going to be all over this. So if you're looking to pivot, I see David Johnson at 6,300 with still a depressed price point, and I think that's a pretty decent pivot if you're willing to pay up.
Jeff, Arrowhead is a pretty tough place to play. What do you think? Are you locking TJ Yeldon, or are you going somewhere else like Ryan?
I mean, the only reason he's not a must play is because he's TJ Yeldon. And I say that meaning he's not really an elite back. Like he's good. And if you give any good running back the kind of volume he's going to get, he's probably going to have a good week, especially against Kansas City, right? But TJ Yeldon is a pretty big step down from Leonard Fournette. I think that's what most people may not be realizing. And that's why I agree with Ryan. We're just on the same page today, by the way. But I think he's a good tournament fade. I think you can go up and find other ways. I think you can even use Corey Grant there because Corey Grant is a more explosive athlete. So I think he's fine for cash games. I would put him in a cash game lineup this week. He's going to get good volume. He's got a great matchup. But again, he's definitely fadeable in tournaments, in my opinion.
These guys, so cute.
Humble opinion, I think.
Yeah, well, naturally, it always is. Devontae Freeman, he was sidelined with a right knee contusion the past 3 games, said he's comfortable enough to get out there. So, Dr. P, Freeman injured the MCL and PCL in that knee at the end of last season, did not get surgery, though. Could this have made the knee more susceptible to injury? What do you think? Oh, frozen in thought.
I think that,
well, I think that it was long enough between the PCL and the MCL that it was not going to be an issue. I think that there was enough time to heal from the end of last season to this season that I don't think that's what played a role here. I think it's just, 2 separate injuries, and he has a bone bruise, a bone contusion, and because he's a running back and because his job is to run, you've got to be cautious. You see Aaron Rodgers had a bone bruise, but he was able to come back later in that first game, the second half, and be able to perform. So I think he's going to be fine for this week, and he even says that he's ready to go. So I think thumbs up on him.
Ryan, with Freeman most likely back, I mean, what does that do to Coleman's value, you think?
Yeah, we have Freeman and Coleman pretty much dead even in our projections, and they're also pretty much dead even in DK pricing. The difference, I think, is that Coleman is nursing an injured shin. We're not really sure kind of where that came from, but he did not participate yesterday. Importantly, for this Falcons-Steelers game, it is an over-under 57, which is the highest of the season. And with that many points being scored, potentially that much passing to go around, I think if I want to stack up this game, I'm targeting receivers at their price points rather than the running backs in this one, which I think are kind of overpriced for what they're ought to give.
Jeff, anything Ryan said you'd like to agree with?
I'll tell you what Tevin Coleman's shin is injured from. It's from kicking my fantasy teams while they're down the last 2 weeks. Tevin Coleman's going to score like 4 touchdowns in this game. I almost guarantee it because he was in such a good spot the last 2 weeks. He should have had big games. He did not come through. Ito Smith, whoever that is, decided to get like 30% of the workflow. Now that Tevin Coleman's going to be dialed back, he's probably going to see all the red zone targets, blah, blah, blah. You know who we should ask about this? Seriously, Reid. Reid has been spot on, and I hate to give him credit, about everything Atlanta the last 2 weeks. He called Calvin Ridley. He called Ito Smith getting like a touchdown last week. So I'm not going to touch this. Listen to someone else on Tevin Coleman this week.
Well, real quick before we get to Adam, then, what do you got, co-host? That's big pressure.
I mean, first off, I'm flabbergasted that Jeff did compliment me. I appreciate that, Jeff.
Yeah,
big guy.
It does not
I
happen
like
all
that.
the time. It's
But
very kind.
I mean, Ryan's right. You look at a guy like Mohamed Sanu in big games and huge over games where you get that much of an influx of targets and the red zone opportunities. That's where you want to go. These guys are priced like who knows what that timeshare is going to be. They have 3 viable running backs in Atlanta with Ito Smith. So that's a tough one. I would stay away from the running backs and attack the receivers.
Adam, would you avoid them as well?
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Everyone answered everything. So I'm standing back here and enjoying the show. But I agree with Big Country. And I agree with Big Country, because I just think when you have 3 running backs, you don't have 1. So, Ito Smith, by the way, Jeff, played at Southern Miss. He was really good. Complimentary running back. But to your point, Tevin Coleman was in a dream spot the last 2 weeks and laid an egg. And then, Freeman will come back, and to your point, he's probably going to score 2-3 touchdowns, get 6 or 7 catches in a shootout. So for me, there's just too much value elsewhere to trust either one of these guys. And I actually think Freeman's the better back, especially when he's healthy. And the shin issue is nothing to laugh about. So for me, I would totally avoid Coleman. I would avoid Freeman. And that's why I avoid them in the early weeks too, because they're just going to, one guy's going to have a good game, one's going to have a subpar game, and they'll just keep trading off. So for me, it's just a situation to avoid.
All right, well, and since we have the extra second, Dr. P, I'm assuming it's not the pearly gates, but where are you joining us from? Again.
I'm down in Panama, so my Wi-Fi is kind of spotty, but I'm down in Panama.
Panama. See, the show's gone international, Reid.
Let's talk about it.
It's a big thing.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, seriously.
No I missed the models.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The medical models.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and the models. Who knows what's walking around Panama?
I'm looking for the models too.
Yeah, exactly. All right, guys, hang tight. We will need you one last time. All except for Dr. B. We'll let him go find the models. But we will get to tonight's showdown between the Patriots and Colts. Coming up, though, more hockey with our panel. But even before the ice, let's go to Pat Mayo for some mid-range receiver options for Week 5.
Talk about volume being the most important thing. If you think volume is the most important thing and you're not playing Doug Baldwin this week, unless you just really think he's not healthy, I just don't understand what you're doing.
Well, you can even make the case, too, that this lines up perfectly for him in this matchup, unless Russell Wilson's just on his back the entire game and has no time to throw, because you're looking at Doug Baldwin, likely going to play out of the slot, meaning he's going to be matched up over the middle with the weakest part of this Rams offense. Peters is still banged up, but playing. Talib is out. I think that there is a path for him here to see double-digit targets, and if he is healthy, and like you mentioned, the 7 targets last week do go a long way to showing, hey, that was his first week back. He can probably grow on that this week, and I'm not convinced that this Rams defense isn't going to start giving up like 25 points per game either. So I like Baldwin. Are you in on Baldwin, Davis?
No, Baldwin's just like the perfect example of a guy that I don't play while everyone else does play. He is old. He's injured. He's got an offensive coordinator that continues to call run plays at the highest clip in the league when you adjust for game script. The offensive line is horrible. His quarterback's not running. They are playing like everything about that Seattle situation just screams like I don't want any pieces from that. And also Tyler Lockett is at this point in their careers, he's like a more athletic player. He's more likely to be open. He's more likely to get plays called for him, which has not been true in the past in Baldwin's career. And Lockett has, earned that trust from Russell Wilson this year. I just kind of make it a rule to like not invest in teams that I just think are not going to be able to put points on the board. And I think that that's a very real situation for Seattle. And it's not Russell Wilson's fault. It's just Schottenheimer is the worst offensive play caller of the 32 teams.
All right, I'm going to go with Baldwin. I'm going to be on Team Mike with this one. The other guys around there, I mentioned Cooper Kupp. I like Cooper Kupp. I like John Brown because I still think that when the Browns deploy Denzel Ward, they'll probably end up putting him on Michael Crabtree, which is probably a mistake. But hey, good news for us. John Brown's just a weird price this week that he'll end up getting overlooked. And the last guy is just Tyler Boyd. Even with the price increase, if Xavier Howard can just limit A.J. Green, it's going to be a bonanza for Tyler Boyd, Mike.
Yeah, I think that, the Boyd target share has become more certain. We've seen that he's obviously a very skilled receiver and that John Ross just really isn't a challenger for meaningful targets there. So I think he's an okay play with the price bump.
All right, thanks again, Pat. We've got Joe Holka and Sean Newsham from the Action Network back with us. Obviously, you can find that Action Network app on iPhones and Androids. Tears of joy now, gentlemen, since DK has some great Tears contests for tonight's action on the ice. In Tier 1, there is Alex Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, Tyler Seguin, and Patrick Kane. Who has the best chance to stand out, Joe?
Yeah, for the record, I'm going to say that Sean got first pick on pretty much all of these. So I do think it's pretty close between Tyler Seguin and Alex Ovechkin. Maybe a better spot for the Stars, but I'll go with Ovechkin. He was the second highest shot prediction on our models today, 6.3 shot attempts per game over the past year, which is first in the entire slate. Only Tarasenko was closer. So in a tiers format, I still think you can kind of lock in Ovi and feel pretty good about it.
All right, Sean, what do you think?
Yeah, Joe's just over there being jealous of my reaction time, I guess. But for me, Tyler Seguin is the no-brainer play here. I think he's the best play on the slate. He was second in the league in shots last year, just behind Ovechkin. It's a very plus matchup for him. So for me, at the top end, I think that Tyler Seguin is the very easy play.
Well, let's drop down a few tiers then to Tier 4. You got Roman Josi, Sebastiano, Artemi Panarin, Blake Wheeler, Sean Couturier, Jonathan Marchessault as well. So which of these incredibly challenging names to say will bring in the most fantasy points tonight? What do you think, Sean?
For me, Jonathan Marchessault, I sort of brought him up earlier in the show, and I think that in this tier, he's once again the clear play. I think this, of all the tiers we'll talk about, is the easiest one to go for. Marchessault is just a massive shot producer, and last year he finally saw his minutes per game get up above 17 minutes. I expect his minutes to keep rapidly increasing as this season goes on, and his shot volume should follow with it. I think that Vegas was able to add a few more important pieces, which I'll get to in a little bit as well, and I think Marchessault should be the play in Tier 4.
Joe, since you probably would have gone Marchessault, do you like somebody else?
Yeah, so the reason Sean was a little bit quicker on the email there was that he's got a little less stuff to do during the day than I do. I was kind of busy at the time. But anyways, yeah, I like Marchessault a lot for a lot of the same reasons that Sean said. I think that Roman Josi is a decent pivot in this tier. Kind of a steal if it wasn't for Marchessault in this spot. Like Josi is the only player in the entire slate that's in the 99th percentile in shots plus blocks. So something that's really important at defenseman. So I think that if you're looking for a pivot off of Marchessault, I think Roman Josi is really solid.
Man doesn't have to have hobbies. Joe, get off his back.
I know, geez. I'm a little more afraid of a response in this next tier as opposed to saying these names. But one more tier, Tier 7 with PK Subban, Phil Kessel, Chris Letang, Nikolai Ehlers, John Klingberg, Mikko Rantanen, Mikko Koivu, and Mark Stone. These names are challenging. One that is not, Sean. What do you think?
I think you actually got them all right there. It seemed like they were all pretty on point, so you had that going for you. But for me, it's Chris Letang at this tier. He is in the 90th plus percentile in shots plus blocks over the last season. I think he is the person that sticks out the most for me at this tier.
Joe, what do you think?
Yeah, I really like this first power play unit for the Penguins in general, but I'm going to go with Phil of Thrill. I think that he's a guy that probably has the best ceiling in this entire tier, so I think you can't go wrong. In this last tier, you're really looking for upside. You want to have that differentiating play. So I think a lot of people will go the Chris Letang route, but if you get a goal from Phil in the Tier 3, I think it makes a lot of sense given that they have the highest implied total on the slate next to the Stars.
I don't know why it's still wild to me that Kessel's producing at the rate that he still is after all these years, and even in a very deep team. But let's get your slate-approved picks, guys. One lock from each of you for tonight's 10-game slate. I'll let you go first, Joe. What do you have?
Appreciate that. I'm going to go with Patrick Hornquist at 5,900. Just a guy that's historically gets way too cheap for the winger slot. The pricing doesn't always take into effect how many shots that he actually blocks, which is pretty uncommon for a winger. So Patrick Hornquist, you do get access to a lot of the same upside that you're going to get from the other Pittsburgh skaters, but at a significantly cheaper price. I really like Hornquist at 5,900.
Sean, tag.
Yeah, so I have a friend that would play Max Pacioretty basically every slate for the last 4 years. If they played a bunch of Greek gods, he was playing Max Pacioretty. It didn't matter. But he generally wasn't correct in this assumption. But tonight, I think Max Pacioretty is my lock of the slate. He is in a fantastic spot, getting the second line run for Vegas. And I really think that the increase in talent that's surrounding him and a change of scenery is going to do him wonders. And he's already a high shot volume guy. So I think Max Pacioretty should be in a fantastic spot to produce tonight.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. MLB playoffs get underway tonight, so we're going to let you guys go. Thanks for joining us. Baseball's coming up after the update on Rob Gronkowski and the Patriots from Tyler Sullivan.
Tyler Sullivan here with your DraftKings Fantasy Flash. The Patriots will be locked and loaded heading into their Thursday Night Football matchup with the Colts, as ESPN's Adam Schefter is reporting that tight end Rob Gronkowski will suit up in the Week 5 opener. Gronkowski left Sunday's contest with the Dolphins after suffering an ankle injury, and given the short week for New England, there was a question if he'd be good to go. The tight end was able to return to practice in a limited fashion on Wednesday and is good to go for tonight. Rob Gronkowski, who is worth $9,800 in the standard showdown spot, has been quiet the last 3 weeks, catching just 10 passes for 110 yards. But with Julian Edelman set to make his return from suspension in this game, along with Josh Gordon continuing to mesh with the Patriots offense, that should open things up for more of a stud performance from the tight end.
All right, we are back with our baseball crew. Gary and Thorne of DK Live, Matt LaMarca from the Action Network. It's great to see you boys. If you've been paying attention, you know where to find the app. Certainly the Action Network app, the one I'm talking about. But just a reminder, Androids, iPhones, it's all over the place. More from these guys. But I'm just excited to hear what they have to say.
I mean, that's right. Mr. Kaufman here has let us know that our baseball guys are back. And where you'll find most of us is glued to our picture box, also known as a television, watching Game 1 of the NL Divisional Series between the Braves and the Dodgers.
Game 1 in Los Angeles tonight, guys. We're going to need your picks on the next set of questions, really. Gary, and we'll start with you. What are your expectations for the starting pitchers tonight? Using both, neither? What are you looking at?
I'm not really tied to definitively using either of these guys. I think if forced to pick between the two, I would lean towards Folty, just because we know the Dodgers have a higher propensity to strike out. Foltynewicz also tends to work deeper into games than Ryu, and that's really the key thing here. I mean, we knock Dave Roberts and make jokes all the time about how quick he is to pull the trigger on going to the bullpen, but with Ryu, it seems to be taken to another level. I mean, you look back at his last 10 starts, in 9 of those, he hasn't even reached 90 pitches thrown. Now, he's super efficient. He's got a low walk rate that helps, but I just feel like in the playoffs where sometimes these traits are amplified in managers, I know it's just Game 1, but I would have Folty over Ryu here tonight.
I'm just happy we don't have a stupid opener tonight. I freaking stand this idiocy in baseball now. What do you got, Matt?
I'm trying my best to get them both in. I think this is actually a pretty good spot to load up on both guys for the showdown format. Paul LaDuca, former All-Star catcher, over at the Action Network with us, he says that these games that start at weird times in Dodger Stadium, they start like 5 p.m. Pacific time. He says the shadows there are just a huge problem for hitters early in the game. So I'm actually anticipating the first few innings of this game at the very minimum to be pretty low scoring. So I'm going to do my best to get both starting pitchers in there. If you look, these guys have been good too. You know, Ryu has only allowed 1 earned run over his past 3 starts. And Foltynewicz obviously pitched to a sub-3 ERA this season. So I like both of these guys tonight. I'm going to try my best to fit them in.
All right, so Matt, that's how you're going to lean. Gary, and you said you're not too attached to either one. So are there any specific arms you would like to get in?
No, I think this really isn't the time to get cute. I mean, we've talked about these showdown lineups for the wild card game slates, and that's really where you see managers pull out all the stops, start utilizing relievers for multiple innings. I don't know if there's that sort of desperation for a Game 1 here tonight. I agree with Matt. I don't think this is going to be an exceedingly high-scoring game. So, you know, I'm more of the thought process that Ryu goes 5, Foltynewicz goes 6, and we don't see any relievers actually pile up multiple innings, just probably 2 or 3 on each side. So there's no one really aside from the closers where I would say you really have to consider playing this reliever.
All right, Matt, let's go on the offensive side and the big bats to target tonight. Who are you targeting? You got Max Muncy. What do you think?
Yeah, I think that the Dodgers side is definitely more appealing for me here. I mentioned Foltynewicz has been good, but he hasn't been as good over the second half of the season. And if you look at what the Dodgers have done this year, they just absolutely destroy right-handed pitching. So I have interest really in all of their big bats. But if you look at Jock Peterson at the top of the lineup, Yasmani Grandal batting 5th, and even Yasiel Puig, who will likely bat like 6th or 7th. All 3 of those guys have just really outperformed their average distance over the past 15 days. So I think those guys are all in great spots. And then you mentioned Max Muncy, but he has a 61% hard hit rate over the same time frame. So I think that all of these guys are in pretty good spots here, at least once the hitting conditions in Los Angeles become more favorable.
Gary, you disagree? Agree with him? What do you think?
No, I agree. I think the Braves' key value or sort of offensive tribute is that they don't strike out. And while that might hurt Ryu's value, it doesn't necessarily make me like any of these bats, maybe aside from like Acuna, but I think he's going to be a popular play with his splits tonight. I would agree. I would say that the big left-handed bats at the top of this order are all super viable. I mean, Grandal, it's not just a case of him needing to face a right-handed pitcher. He needs to also be playing at Dodger Stadium, we've seen throughout this season, to be viable. I will say one name I kind of like just as a variance play, and it sounds funny to say Manny Machado is a variance play, but I think most people are on to the Folty tends to struggle with left-handed bats if he struggles at all narrative, and that's true. His home run suppression numbers against right-handed bats are fantastic, but he leans heavily on his slider, and it's a very good slider against right-handed bats. 40% usage. He's holding opposing right-handed hitters to a 135 average on the pitch so far this season. But Manny Machado has crushed right-handed sliders for the duration of this season, the ISO hanging up around 300. So I think where all the ownership is going toward these left-handed bats, Machado might be a nice play at 10,000.
Garen, I felt like I'm seeing double this entire time. Is that a picture of you behind you?
That is a picture of Josh Donaldson, and there's also a picture of Reggie Jackson. So thank you. I am generally.
I wasn't looking. I wasn't looking.
The bearded one kind of looks like him. I agree with that.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at Reggie. All right, we've seen Tony Walters, Luke Voigt. I mean, household names. Clearly, this postseason already through a couple of wild card games. These guys have served key roles. So, who's an unsung hero who could come through in Game 1? What do you think there, Josh Donaldson?
Josh Donaldson is a traitor, and I will not be considered in his ranks anymore. I think the Braves are kind of an interesting spot to mine value. They've got 2 bats hitting inside the top half of their order in Tyler Flowers and Johan Camargo, who do have very good splits against left-handed pitching. I think I would lean Camargo just because he is a switch hitter, so if Ryu, like I believe, doesn't go deep into this game, the splits don't get too significantly terrible against right-handed pitching, where for Flowers, they kind of fall off a cliff. You've got him hitting in the 2nd spot in the order tonight. I like that too, but his numbers against lefties are great since the beginning of June.
Matt?
Yeah, I agree 100%. Those are the 2 guys on my radar, but I think at least for the start of the game, I think Flowers is maybe the better option. He's got a 469 WOBA and 262 ISO against Southpaws over the past 12 months, and he enters this game in just ridiculous StatCast form. He's got a 50% hard hit rate and has exceeded his 12-month average distance by 43 feet over the past 15 days. So I think Camargo enters this game just in like really shining StatCast form. He could be a really nice play at low ownership.
All right, Matt, let's stay with you. Who gets your stamp of approval tonight?
Both starting pitchers.
Okay, easy.
Got it. Garen?
I'm going to go with Machado. I feel confident with this righty slider thing.
And Reggie Jackson.
And Reggie. And that old school typewriter, or just typewriter, because typewriters are old school. I like that.
Reggie,
I don't know if there's new school typewriters.
Yeah, that's why I had typewriters.
I don't know why he would think I'd get that confused. Reggie doesn't have a beard. Guys, we got one more segment tonight talking Showdown, but before we get to Jeff's cleanly shaven and shiny bald head, I'm going to pass it off to a conversation from earlier and a man with a great smile. 2 Adams here, Kaufman and Levitan. That means when we're together, Levitan's leverage or Levy criticizing my ability to tweet, whichever comes first. Levy, how are you, buddy?
Doing well. How's it going?
Doing good. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with leverage, you can educate yourself on the DK playbook every week. He told you, for instance, to play Sterling Shepard last week. I listened, hit for 25 points. So let's see who Levy likes this week. Doug Baldwin is first, 6,700, facing a Rams defense that's pretty strong against receivers. He hasn't done anything yet this season, though, so why this week?
Yeah, actually, Doug Baldwin is down at 5K, and that's what makes him so appealing. You know, Doug Baldwin coming off of that knee issue, certainly concerned, but they did not ease him in last week. Ran a pass route on 27 out of Russell Wilson's 30 dropbacks. We know that when Doug Baldwin is out there, he will be the #1 target for Russ Wilson in a game that has a chance to turn into a shootout. I mean, Seattle has no chance of stopping the Rams on defense. So it should be a lot of pass attempts for Russ Wilson here.
See, so had he been 6,700 or whatever it was, Levy wouldn't have gone anywhere near him. How about Vance McDonald, 3,700? We consistent on that? All right, same as last week. Double digits each of his last 2 games. He's got the Falcons this time, so what's so special about this matchup?
Yeah, the way that you beat this Falcons defense is through the middle, right? Their strength is on the perimeter with Desmond Trufant, with Robert Alford. And so we've seen tight ends and slot receivers and running backs just totally torch this Falcons defense. So I like James Conner. I like Juju Smith-Schuster. The cheapest option by far is Vance McDonald, who isn't quite getting full-time usage, but do expect him to be out there on about 2/3 of the pass plays. And given his athletic skill set, I think that's enough for him to get there at 3,700.
Christian McCaffrey, 8K. He has totaled 55 points his last 2 games. He's also rested, coming off a bye. He's going to host the Giants, one of the worst defenses in the league against running backs. So are you just riding momentum with this one?
Yeah, I mean, really hard for Christian McCaffrey to fail here when you think about how much he plays, over 90% of the snaps, and he's going to finish the year among the top 20, top 10 among any position in targets. So once you factor that in, plus we'll work around the red zone, plus all the carries that he gets, plus this really good matchup, plus he's coming off a bye, plus he's at home. It's just a really tough spot for Christian McCaffrey to fail.
How big is that hat?
It's too big. I can't find one that fits my head. We've hit rock bottom.
This is like a Barry Bonds helmet situation. Adam Levitan. Check out Levitan's leverage. Thanks, buddy. Thank you, Levy. Thanks, me. Thanks to you for putting up with our little trickery there. He's always a good time. Football Crew's back one last time, talking about fellas who like to have fun. All-out Blitz host Adam Mancuda, Jeff Ulrich, and the Action Network's Ryan Collinsworth. Guys, hi, welcome back. Patriots, they're going to clash with the Colts tonight in Foxborough. Should be an easy win for New England, but Thursday games mean showdown contests. So, Adam, captain's pick.
I mean, is this going to be a real surprise here? Give me the GOAT. Brady, I think, is in line for a huge night tonight. You got to pay up for him. I don't trust Luck tonight. He doesn't have his weapons. T.Y. Hilton's out. Jack Doyle's out. They don't have a proven running game. So, for me, you got to pay up for Brady. He's got Edelman back. Gordon's back. This week. So you got to hit the running back. So I think Michelle's going to take a load off the passing game. And again, in his career against the Colts, he's 10-3, 29 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. And if you look at the numbers as well, Tom Brady's best month historically is October. Most touchdowns, most number of interceptions is October. That's usually when the Patriots kick it into gear. So for that reason, I'll take Brady. No problem tonight.
Well, and Jeff, unless I zoned out there, which I'll never rule out, it's always possible, Rob Gronkowski is also expected to be active, so it's not just Edelman and Gordon. You got Gronk back after that ankle injury, held him out or took him out late in that Miami game. So all sorts of weapons for Brady, but who's your guy?
Well, I don't roster senior citizens. I don't think I'm going to pay up like $18,000 for Tom Brady or however much it is. I'd rather pay up for Julian Edelman, though, in this situation. I mean, the Colts are down like basically every single one of their starting cornerbacks, or maybe not every single one, but one or two for sure, and another one's questionable. I think this is just a great spot for Julian Edelman to get right back in the lineup and just go off, quite frankly.
Even the fact that he hasn't played a meaningful game in 20 months?
You act like he's never played football before, though. And, I mean, he's coming in rested. He had a full training camp. Like, he's not coming in off injury this year. He's coming in off suspension. Huge difference, right? So, and again, it's just the matchup, the way New England rolled last week, and they need to get the pass game going. So I'm not scared of rostering Julian Edelman at all in this situation. It's the Patriots. They get their players ready. I think he's going to step right off the ground running. I will say this, I do like Josh Gordon here, but I'd feel safer with Edelman just because, obviously, of his connection with Brady. But I would not be shocked to see Josh Gordon have a big game here, too.
I like Gordon, too. I've got him in my flex spot. I'm nervous. I am.
Oh, you're a team that no one cares about, right, Kaufman. Okay.
Exactly. I don't know. Ryan's listening. What do you got there, Stone Cold?
Yeah, I'm on Brady, too, if and only if Gronkowski does play as expected. With Gronkowski since 2013, Brady's got 24.8 fantasy points per game, and without him, it's 19.9. That's a 5-point fantasy split, which is significant to me. So in the event that Gronk is a late scratch for whatever reason, I'm pivoting down to Sony Michel. Like many of us thought last week, he got fed the rock. He had 25 carries, which is more than weeks 2 and 3 combined. Josh McDaniels, the OC, has run 45% of the time this season, which is up 5% from last season, which may be an indictment on Jeff's little, senior citizen comment on Tom Brady in that offense. And then the Colts, as Jeff alluded to, they have 2 starting corners out and 1 rotational corner out. And I think what that will result in from a schematic perspective is that they will cede short yardage, they will cede the flats, and they'll cede the running game, which is good for guys like Edelman, White, and Michelle. So give me Michelle.
We have received word from our newsroom, by the way. Rob Gronkowski is confirmed in, so you don't even need to worry about pivoting down. You can just stick with the GOAT.
Yeah, well, we'll stick with you, Ryan. Is there a value pick you really like tonight?
Yeah, I like Philip Dorsett again for the Patriots in a revenge game against the Colts.
Narrative.
He's got a 15.6 yard average depth of target, and he leads that team in air yards. Plus, he plays on the outside a lot more than Chris Hogan has this year. We've seen Hogan kind of as an inside receiver about half the time. So I think Dorsett has a role that is pretty locked up, playing against his former team at $3,600, which is pretty dang cheap. So I like that as a value spot.
Jeff, what do you think? Who's your value play?
I like Zach Pascal. He came on last week, 10 targets. And if you look at Chester Rogers and Ryan Grant, they're just not true #1 wide receivers at all. But they're going to get #1 attention from the Patriots corners this week. So Zach Pascal's a pretty competent player, quite frankly. He looked really good. He's a big guy, too, so he's going to be a bit more of a red zone presence. And Eric Ebron can't catch the ball anyways, so I wouldn't be shocked to see him get peppered with some targets here again. Going to be down T.Y. Hilton. He's extremely cheap too, which is the real reason I like him. But I think he's a great target in this game where Indy should be throwing a ton.
Adam, are you going Adam Vinatieri revenge narrative for your value? What do you think?
No, I was hoping Jacoby Brissett would get the start so that we can go that route. But to be honest, I'm going to take Nyheim Hines, the running back for the Colts. I think that he's a perfect weapon for the Colts in this type of a game where they're going to be playing from behind. There's a ton of checkdowns like last week where I think he had 9 catches and 2 of them went for touchdowns. You probably have to pay up a little bit more than these guys mentioned. But I do think Hines in this game is going to be a PPR monster. So I would certainly try to get him in there. He did this his entire college career at NC State. So it's nothing new for him. He's very capable out of the backfield. So for me, it's Hines against the Pats tonight.
Guys, Pat's defense really good in a thumping of the Dolphins a few days ago after a few questionable outings to open the year. The Colts offense banged up. We've already hit on some of it. T.Y. Hilton, of course, top of the list in the fact that he's not going to play. Only his 3rd absence in a 7-year career. Generally, he's out there. But, Jeff, would you look at the New England DST or either of the place kickers in this one? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, look, New England's DST is probably going to be really popular. And I think, again, I think the news is out that most people know the Colts are basically rostering like their minor league team tonight.
Oh, it's a bucket of yuck,
Their injury report is like 2 pages long. It's ridiculous. So New England's obviously coming off a good defensive game. I will say this. I'd rather roster Gostkowski. I think he's got just a little bit more upside. I mean, the Patriots defense hasn't really been like a turnover machine or anything at all, and they're not really getting a ton of sacks. So I think I see this game having a bit more of a shootout potential. Should lead to lots of Gostkowski points. That's probably the way I'd lean if I had to choose between the two.
What do you think, Ryan? Kickers?
Miss me with the kickers entirely. I'm not about the kicker life. Give me the Patriots D. I like what Jeff had to say about that one, though. The only thing I disagree with him about is I don't think it's going to be a shootout. I think, it favors the under a little bit, at least for me. And, just to harp on those Colts injuries a tiny bit, we know the injuries to their skill position players, but people might not be aware. They have 3 different starting offensive linemen that are out, including the center. I just don't know how in the world they're going to move the ball. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to lead to crazy turnovers or anything in this game. It's going to be conservative. It's going to be checked down. It's going to be a safe play for that Patriots defense. But at least for me, I'm probably going to have to eat the chalk on that one.
We are really getting to know Ryan, and he's not about that life. He won't do it. Adam, any chance, we're getting to know you too, pal, any chance you have anything bad to say about the Patriots?
No. Absolutely no.
He's on the D. He's on the kicker.
No, give me the Pats D tonight. As I said, I think that the Colts are set up to have one of these 45-10 games against them. When have the Colts ever played well in Foxborough? Even when they had Peyton Manning, they didn't play well in Foxborough, no matter what the game. So for me, I don't see Luck having much success at all. I actually think he's going to try to force it, maybe lead to some turnovers. He's always been turnover prone against the Pats. And I actually like Gostkowski here because I don't think the Patriots are going to have trouble moving the ball. And if they get bogged down in the red zone, he's going to come on for some field goals. So I could see him easily having 3 field goals, 4 extra points tonight in a blowout. So give me both of them this week. And no, you can never get me to say anything bad about the Pats. Wait till next week when they play the Chiefs.
The Chiefs,
that'll be a problem.
It's true. I mean, I'll give you some numbers real quick. I know we got to go, but we're all about numbers here. Tom Brady has never lost to Andrew Luck. I think Luck is 0-5. Brady is 7. He's won 7 straight against the Colts. And on top of that, he's 7-0 in his career on 3 days rest or whatever the hell it is with this early turnaround. So, yeah, I mean, I think you pounce on Brady tonight.
So what I learned was that you know nothing about the Patriots and that Panama has shoddy internet connection and hopefully no models.
Whatever keeps Dr. P happy, I'm all for. Guys, thanks for joining us, and that goes for you as well. Thank you for coming here to The Sweat. The show comes your way Sunday through Friday during football season, evening 6 to 7 on the East Coast, Monday through Friday. Do not miss a minute. Bye-bye.